Howdy, guys. I'm Mark Dunn, and this is another episode of On the Mark. And I'm here with Mike. Hey, Mike, what's up?
What's up, Mark? It's been a long time. You look good, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't see you, but I'm sure you're looking good too. So,
Yeah, I look like hell. I'm in a tank top, and at least I shaved this morning, but I'm in a tank top. And I gotta be honest, I freaking have loved this COVID thing because I feel like for a long time, for like a year and a half, the roads were mine. The shopping centers were mine. They all belonged
mm,
to me. I felt like a king. And now these peasants are out on my roads and I hate it. So I guess we're getting back to normal. But the other thing that I've gotten into is I mean, it's kind of weird, but I put lotion on. I put like moisturizer, that hyaluronic acid stuff on my face with vitamin C, rose hips,
okay.
and put the banana boat everywhere else. It's kind of weird, but I'm like, this is awesome. But it makes me sweat, so I wear tank tops and shorts all day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I guess you've really been liking the stay-at-home stuff. So,
Yeah. So if you think about it, the World Wide Web, I believe Netscape came out in like '93. It was right around there, 1993. And it was beautiful. You could take like a virtual tour of Hawaii. I did that in 1993, 94. I was like, this internet thing's freaking awesome. I hope it's here to stay. And shortly thereafter, once we laid the infrastructure down as a society, I mean, we should have been able to work from home shortly after that, but it took a catalyst, right? It took an impetus. And after there was an element of kind of force or urgency, all these companies were like, what are we doing paying $30 million a year for real estate? We can pay 12 million and send
yeah,
everybody home because everyone just sits in front of a computer anyways. And
it's
then they
true.
realized no one does any work. So the great fear was, oh, if they work from home, they're not going to work. I got news for you, man. Between like all the gossip and playing Tetris or whatever, Candy Crush, and being on the phone and Chick-fil-A in the afternoon, no one does any work anyways.
That's totally true. To be honest, I get more work done at home than I would at the office because there's so many distractions. Like I can do just work straight. I don't even take lunch breaks or anything like that. I just work straight through the day. So
You know what?
that's
I've seen people get so freaking fit too. I every time I see them, it's been 6 months, and I'm like, are you sick or you been working out? Oh yeah, man, Peloton and all that. So they're not getting stuffed with high calorie Starbucks like you are.
yeah, I know. Well, okay, so I've actually started to get fit too. I mean, like this is a time period where we were taking advantage of what's going on. I guess like the ways to take advantage of that is to, if you're not going into work, you have a lot more free time, so you can like for example, for myself, I've started doing jujitsu in the morning
Dude,
and filling my day like just pretty productive thing. So I do jujitsu, then I go into the office, and then I learn some Torah at night. So um, I'm like really trying to balance my day. But this all started, the working out thing started when COVID started because then everybody was kind of shut down. And I think we talked about this before, but that's when I started like riding my bike around the neighborhood, meeting the neighbors, kind of going out, doing active outdoorsy things because you just can't be cooped up in your house all the time.
no, man. In fact, when we did that podcast, I think it was the very day that North Carolina shut down. That
Mm,
it was an official sort of like stay-at-home order, and we're sitting at that cigar bar, and everyone there. It reminded me now, in retrospect, it reminds me of like the nightlife still going on in Saigon
right,
when the
right.
Viet Cong were overrunning the place. Um, but yeah, so what? Almost 18 months on, and we're still here. Everyone's still here. And
Yeah, I
if I
mean,
think if you boil down like, oh, well, back then, one of the things we talked about was, hey, by the wintertime, if there's not a mountain of corpses, right, then there
right,
should be
right.
some recriminations. I think that's what my exact line was. And okay, where's the mountain of corpses, right? There are more people, slightly more people who died in the year 2019 than who died in 2020. So I'm like, okay, just on a grand scale, where are those? And then you ask people, hey man, hey, who do you know has died of COVID? And it's never like, oh, my uncle. It's always like, well, I know this guy. I was talking to my mom, who's all concerned, and she's been cooped up in the house, like living in fear. And I'm like, she's on me about getting this vaccine. And I'm like, no, listen, man, like we're fine. I'm totally healthy. I'm totally fine. All my kids are fine. We have an elderly mother-in-law in the house. She's fine. Everyone's fine. Screw you. By now we should be dead, right?
Right, right.
And I'm like, Mom, do you know anyone who's died of COVID? She said, yeah, man. My classmate says she takes like elderly people college courses. And so she can bug all the young people trying to get an education, right? And all these old people do that. So she's like, yeah, my classmate, her mom died. And my classmate, she's my age. And it's actually her dad. Yeah, her dad died. So I'm like, wait a minute, you're 73.
Hmm.
So her, she's 73. So her father died of COVID. Oh my God. Like some 90 something year old. Is that like unexpected? Is that tragic? At some point in life, you can't sit
Right.
there and be like,
That's
oh my God, it's so freaking tragic. So honestly, I'm sick and tired of this whole thing. And I knew it was a scam. I think it's a scam. I think it's another like, oh my God, we're all going to die of glaciation, or our faces are going to be melted off from acid rain. We have an inch of topsoil left. There's going to be no crops. Oh my God, deforestation, all that crap. And then in the 2000s, they started hitting us with, we're going to die of Zika, of bird flu, of swine flu, of SARS, right? SARS was going
right,
to kill us
right.
all. And coming out of China, by the way. So everything comes out of China. So we're all going to die of something. I've seen ordinal lists going back to like the 1800s, where every 3 or 4 years, there's like some earth ender that everyone's going nuts about. So I've kind of concluded that there's something in our DNA. So humans are so far the most successful species that have ever lived. Not by longevity, right? That would be the dinosaurs, but we have the ability to adapt. We're the most adaptive. And I
Hmm.
think there's something in our DNA that says, hey, in order to survive, you damn well better be looking over your shoulder, and your reaction to some threat has got to be like panic level, because those stupid ass dinosaurs, they just sort of sat there. They didn't adapt, right?
Right.
Or if you look at different races of people who'd never survived, or didn't do well because they didn't adapt. I mean, like American Indians, right? As much as I
I
hate to say
mean,
that,
I feel
but
like there are very few races that didn't survive. I mean, most races survived, even
yeah, they
American Indians.
survived, but at what level? They
So
didn't propagate. So when the Europe came with metal weaponry and shields and firearms, the American Indians, they just didn't adapt until very late, right? Until very
yeah.
late,
Well,
and
until
so
this time in history, I mean, I guess like half a year ago, they just gave like half of Oklahoma to back to the Indians.
damn straight,
So
yeah. I
they were
mean
like,
that ruling upset a lot of people, but the Supreme Court basically said, hey, FedGov, you can't you're not going to do this anymore. You're not going to make deals where you're like, hey, give us all of Manhattan and we got some seashells for you, you know?
right,
And so they
yeah.
invalidated that, and good for them. Good for
Yeah,
them.
that's
So
awesome. Actually, I don't have a problem with that at all. Um, one of the things I was thinking about, like the state of what's going on right now. I mean, I'm outside of Starbucks, and you walk into Starbucks, and there's more people working behind the counter than there are that are actually the customers. There's like 20 people working in Starbucks, and they're all masks, and they're all like, it's like an autonomous zone. It's like we go back to this thing. It's like we're in our mini Seattle, where it's like you walk in, you're the only person not masked, and there's all these people coming in, and it's probably the busiest place in this area at this time. I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
It's crazy.
I bet you though, is there a drive-through there?
Yeah, there's also a drive-through.
Is it
More,
packed? Because that's the way business is done now at these big
yeah.
retailers. Or these restaurants, right? So the Chick-fil-A, the freaking line is going blocking the road. I'm like, guys, it's a freaking $8 chicken sandwich. You're an idiot, you know?
I mean, it is a
But
good chicken sandwich. I'm not gonna lie. That's like the best chicken
whatever. I
sandwich.
don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. But so with Starbucks, I think basically the demand simply shifted to drive-through. And if I could do one thing over in my life, I would recognize that people will pay a gigantic premium for convenience. A good example would be Green Mountain Coffee. If you ever
Mhm.
shake one of those little things, you're like, wait a minute, I'm being cheated here. There's like a tiny little, those vitamin C scoops, the powdered vitamin C, is a tiny little bit of coffee in there.
Yeah.
And you look at the price per unit and you're like, damn, I got freaking ripped off. But it doesn't matter. People pay a huge premium for that convenience
You're
factor,
paying
right?
like $1.50 per every cup, pretty
Yeah, it's
much.
insane, dude.
Like it's
And
crazy. The cup is
the
like this big.
yeah, and the first 20% of that is actually coffee water, and then the last 75% is some sort of like it's just water with a tiny bit of tint in it, and that's what you're getting, dude. But yeah, back to the COVID thing, which honestly is the only topic that
Right, I know.
is on everyone's
Obviously,
mind.
like Biden came out with these mandates. The mandates say that you must be vaccinated if you're in federally, if you're in a company over 100 people, and the fines are like $13,600, I believe, for like every issue that you're having. And this is absolutely crazy. Thank God, like for myself, I mean, maybe not for most people, but for myself, I don't work at big companies. I'm an independent contractor. So like nobody's going to tell me that I have to do something or the other thing. People are going around saying stuff like, oh, you're never going to get work because you're not like this, or yeah, you're gonna have to cave in. And thus far, it's actually helped me with work. So my story is, it's I mean, well, there's two sides of it. One job I actually got fired from for not being vaccinated. The truth is, I lied about being vaccinated, and I presented a fake vax card,
Yeah,
and
God bless you, man.
yeah,
Awesome.
and they
Now, how did they
fired me.
catch that? Did
Well,
they
I mean, I guess I fabricated it, and I didn't. I guess they check the numbers and stuff. They check it to the sites, and they call up the sites. I don't even know if they're allowed to do that necessarily. I think that's like maybe a violation of your HIPAA rights. But
Mm,
they so like what happened was some of my work got cut like last month for my contracting stuff I do with the e-commerce sites from one of my main clients. Um, and then to make up for that work, I went to go be a photographer at a summer camp. So about a week into the summer camp, they realized my documents were fake, and then they they're just like, you have to leave. And I'm like, oh, and then they gave me a whole like moral spiel about how I'm killing all the kids and stuff like that. And I was just, I mean, I kind of just went peacefully because I'm not going to argue with them. I don't want any like real charges coming on me.
yeah,
And
I get it. So
like, I was just like, I'm just going to go. Like, you did give me like 3 or 4 PCR tests. So I definitely didn't have COVID, or or the PCR test could have been wrong, obviously. Um, that's what everybody's saying. I've heard so many stories. They're like, well, I got a PCR test, and then the doctor said it was negative. They're like, just go take another PCR test, because it's probably not true. I'm like, what is that?
you know what?
Like,
So here's what's in a nutshell. And by the way, God bless you, man, because almost every single person out there that I know of is exactly like this. They're like, look, man, I'm just trying to go through life. I work, most of my time is dedicated towards working just like all my ancestors, right? So I work, thank God it's an air conditioned. And then look, I got stuff with the family. I got to take the kids to practice. I want to see their baseball games and stuff. And then honestly, like the little bit of free time I have, I just want to grab a freaking brew and do some of the things I like. And
right.
then all of a sudden, someone shoves a freaking figurative microphone in my face to put me on the record, like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And it could be abortion, it could be whatever the
Like
hell it
I'm
is.
shoving into your face right now, right?
No,
Like,
well, this is
no, okay,
voluntary,
this is
baby,
voluntary.
and
Right, totally.
in a way, we're kind of like trying to. So here's why we're having this conversation. So most guys are like, "Oh, okay, so I don't want to go on the record. I don't want to take a stand. I just want to be me. I just want to be Mike. I just want to move along in life and all that." And they keep shoving it. They keep shoving it. forcing you to take a side. So most people are like, oh, whatever, path of least resistance. Like, what am I supposed to say, right? And the activists are like, oh yeah, man, we got someone on our side. No, he's not on your side. He's just fucking sick and tired of you shoving something in his face. And he's like, all right, well, if this won't get me fired, but just leave me alone. I just want to be me. And now we're at the point where you've freaking hurt some people, man. You've hurt their work prospects. You've called them all sorts of names, and it's going like for decades, right? Hey, society raises its hand. Hey, can we have a polite conversation about X, Y, and Z?
Right.
And the upper crust is like, hey, shut up, you racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobe, MAGA supporting country fried cousin fucking rube. And it's like, okay, all right, well, maybe I'll just be quiet. But I want to have a polite conversation about whatever this topic is. And eventually they had enough. They're like, okay, well, if we can't have a polite conversation, there's this guy. He's a freaking pig. His name is Donald Trump. He is a pig. And he's proud of it. He didn't hide it. But we're going to hire him to have an impolite conversation with you. Okay, that didn't go well. And so they keep shoving that figurative microphone in your face. And now you freaking done it, man. You freaking done it. So now people are activated. I was at a local yokel freaking school board meeting.
Oh my gosh.
It was
These
about
school board meetings, man.
Well, so check it out. I mean, that's mainly like moms. No one goes to those things, first of all. Like, no one's ever there. All of a sudden, there's like a couple hundred people there. And I was just sort of scoping it out.
That's a new trend to go to the school board meetings because of all the stuff going on. And
yeah, because you know what?
schools.
These kids are being suffocated all day long. These poor little tiny kids with the masks on, they can't breathe. Like, I was at the barber shop, and this poor little kid, look, maybe 7 years old, the dad was like, keep your mask on. And this kid was like, I'm about to die. Not my place to say anything, but I'm like, that poor little thing, man. Why don't you have a heart? God damn it. Adults can handle things like that. Kids, they cannot. And so we've never had any more, higher suicide rate amongst teenagers. Like, why is a teenager committing suicide? So I mean, all these things.
I'm not even sure if adults can handle this anymore. I mean, like,
yeah, you
used to go to a therapist, and you'd like tell them all the symptoms or like what the things you're annoyed about. Now they're just like, instead of telling you you're a hypochondriac, they just say, well, you probably have COVID. That's probably what's up. Like,
and then the therapist is like reporting you to the central command. And so, the government's playing a very dangerous game of chicken with people. So at this, just sharing an observation, sitting here with maybe 200 people at the school board meeting, and the topic was masks and the critical race theory, right? The two big things. And one side was dressed, they obviously organized, and the other side was just moms and dads. And I thought, hey, this is interesting. You would never expect to see a dad at like a PTA meeting or school board meeting. There are a bunch of dudes there. And I could just see it in their faces. They're like, you know what? I've had enough. They haven't gone kinetic yet, but it's close. So then second school board meeting, I'm like, there's 16 sheriff's deputies out here and more inside. You know what I mean? Like, why?
At a school board meeting?
At a school board meeting, because they're like, look what's going on around the country. So someone lit a fuse, right? And the fuse is basically this. Let's use a ridiculous example to illustrate a point. Dog leash laws. Okay, so the dog leash law in Manhattan should definitely be, hey, 6 feet, right? It's got to be beefy enough. No dogs off leash. You just can't have it any other way.
Right.
But should that be the same on a ranch in Montana?
No.
Like, could you imagine? And then,
doesn't make any sense.
That's what we're doing, is one size fits all. So the solution to all this was laid in writing and ratified in 1790 in the Constitution, and it's federalism. Hey, we recognize the beauty about federalism is it recognizes that, hey, we're all just we're imperfect human beings. We don't know the future, and we're kind of guessing, right? So our governmental system recognizes that we're just guessing. And let the guesses be at least custom to the local population. And then there's, back then it was 13, but now it's 50 little guessing laboratories. And what works for Massachusetts might not work for Texas. But
that's what they're arguing about right now with the new abortion laws in Texas. They're arguing against Texas. So if you don't like Texas, if you don't like the neighborhood you live in, you can just move.
Yeah, I mean but you know what? Then you'll spend your whole lifetime and all your resources just moving places because, um, you don't like something or you don't like the gun laws, but I like the abortion laws. Like
Right.
that's not really the solution either. I think that
That's a good point. I guess you can't just move around just
you can't,
because
but you
stuff
know what you can do?
changes.
You can pretty easily, like some mom can pretty easily run for like city council or village council or whatever and unseat that guy.
Hmm.
um they can do it pretty easily at that level, but some mom running for Congress, good luck, good freaking luck. So it should never be top down for things like that. I mean, abortion, let's just put it this way. Let's say you're anti, you want it total, you want anti-abortion, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
federalism is the solution because with the one size fits all, it's all legal. Well, that doesn't leave any room for a place like Utah to have any other law but what the government says. But if you do true federalism, states' rights, live and let live, Utah does their thing, New York does their thing. And if you're anti-abortion, A, you can move to Utah if you want, or B, you can be satisfied because the number of abortions will go down over time, right? And you got to just be like, okay, that's at least a step in the right direction.
Hmm.
And if you're pro-abortion, hell, if you're pro, like, let's sell all the baby parts and you can have an abortion up until like 9 months old, there's going to be a place for you to live and you can live amongst your kind, right? And the answer is federalism. That's actually what's going on here. It's portrayed as a big fight between 26 states versus Biden. No, all you're really saying is, hey, Montana wants to do it their way, Texas wants to do it their way, New York and New Jersey want to do it their way. And I
That's how
say,
it should be.
yeah, live and
No,
let live.
I mean,
And but what happens is the one size fits all encapsulation approach always leads to destruction. Always.
so I think there's an only a one size fits all thing right now that's going on in the world. First of all, I guess I have a few things to say about this like abortion stuff that's going on. Whether you're like pro life or pro choice, I don't think there's actually pro choice. There's just pro restrictions. All this is about control. Nobody that's pro choice is like ever like when they choose to have the actual baby, there nobody's like, let's cheer them on. That's awesome. They're choosing life. They're not ever like that. The people that are like for abortion are just pro restriction. And it's the same thing when they talk about like vaccines. They're just pro restriction and not pro live and let. They're not about this like path of least resistance. You see what I'm saying? Like they just cheer on whatever is destructive and whatever is restrictive.
So what
That's
I think about all this is so it's about my side, your side, my side. I want my side to have the most power to basically do what we want. And the people in like inside the system, the managerial elite of, let's say, the parties, right? The party is just a way to get power.
right.
And
Well,
I
the
think it's
parties are doing a really good job at putting people in boxes because pretty much now you could like just by looking at somebody you can kind of see where they stand politically in many ways. I'm not saying in every case, but in a lot of cases it's like for example, like I used to live in Manhattan and I used to look more Jewish or walk around with the yarmulke, so like people would come up to you and say and like start like a you're like you must be a Zionist, right? Because people come up because like you're Jewish, so obviously you support Israel. So yes, I support Israel, but that doesn't necessarily make you a Zionist. That's there are like a lot of nuances in that definition, but now people are actually falling into those boxes. Like you wear a mask, obviously you're probably vaccinated, and obviously you're more liberal. Um, anyway, yeah, what do you
yeah,
think
I
about
know.
that?
And so
Like,
follow the bouncing ball. Back in the beginning of man, one guy was going around and he was trying to get as much stuff as he could, right? And then he learned very quickly, hey, if you and me, hey, let groups, then we can take stuff off of, from nature, and then take those other people's stuff. And then the other people are like, well, we need a bigger group. And you fast forward, then it became, hey, if we are organized into these nation states, right, and have standing armies and so on, and then we could take everyone else's stuff. And fast forward today, we don't really use, we're beyond that generation of taking other people's stuff. What we do now is we organize legal systems and political systems, but really the aim is to take all the resources. And so one of the best ways to do it is for I call them, you can say political parties or whatever the hell, but one tribe is like, oh, we can grab the moral high ground. Because if you think about it, the 20th century, the two world wars and the little proxy wars after that were gigantic race wars. If you really think about it, World War I, World War II were massive race wars. And mankind recoiled from that in a major way. The Christian world recoiled from it and said, hey, let's never again, right? So that never again sort of assigned a sort of moral currency. And so each side is trying to get the moral high ground, to grab that moral currency in order to bash the shit out of the other side and take their stuff, take their freedom, take their positions of power, take their money, right?
I mean, that's the only argument I'm hearing happening as of late. Like, everything comes down to like an emotional thing, and they're just like, you're just a bad person because you do A, B, and C, on both sides, pretty much. That's what it is.
Yeah, like, hey, you're a baby killer, you're a whatever. And so I tell you my experience of this whole thing, and I work at a major company, and I get it. Like, if you're holding my paycheck over my head, then yeah, I'm gonna be the good little boy and wear a mask. But they've had to be like, hey, dude, you got to put that mask on. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You get a certain amount of mulligans for that. But every other aspect of my life, go to the store, all the Home Depot, whatever. I never put that damn thing on, and I've only been approached one time, and the guy just kept on me, and I was just polite. I'm like, no thanks, right? I appreciate your concern, but basically, fuck off. And out of my kids, some of them are just like
right
we don't
there
care.
right there with you. I never wear a mask anywhere. Just like, if you want to approach me with a mask, to ask me, I might put one on if you're going to give me a mask, but I just don't carry around a mask anymore. So,
if you carry yourself like hey, you're not going to be able to shame me or convert me or get any of your little Karen points off of me. If you just carry yourself that way, no one really says anything. And and I'm just real polite. I've got one kid who's just like, no, and he's like, look, if that means I got to stay home for an entire year from school, and he didn't go to school, he didn't step a foot in that school, because he's like, I will never ever wear a mask. And we got kicked out of the gym. I mean, we got kicked out of a bunch of places, and we're always like, look, it's your place, that's fine, you do what you want to do, but we're just not gonna you're not gonna get my little bit of money, right? And and at first nobody cared, but now, I mean, there's some people losing their restaurants, losing their livelihoods, and I think, hey, action consequence, right? And I've gone this whole time, I should be dead based off of what they said. I should be
right
6 feet under.
When the regular COVID was around, everybody was like, wear a mask, stay away from crowds. Okay, I didn't really do that. And then they're like, well, you're going to get sick and die. And that didn't happen. And then they're like, well, there's this new, more extreme variant, and now you're definitely going to get it. Still not happening. You're not going to find another job. So even though I did get fired from one job, I told that story of me getting fired from that one job and got hired at this other place almost immediately, just because we had like our same views, same beliefs. And they're just like, this guy I can work with, he's just here to work. We're not talking about like political bullshit. I'm just trying to do some work and get shit done, Like,
what's a shame is we've set up an apartheid state. It's a proto-apartheid state, if you think about it. And what's crazy is the government didn't really have to do any of the heavy lifting. The heavy lifting was done by the corporations, who were tripping all over themselves to show that they were good little Nazis. You know what I mean? And so, like, at my company, it's sort of an apartheid state. They've officially kind of they forced us, at the threat of losing our jobs, you have to report your vaccination status. And don't worry, this is only going to
man.
be contained within HR and your manager will never know. I'm like, oh yeah, because it was only going to be 14 days, flatten the curve, just wear a
Right.
mask for a little while, right?
Oh, then it was like 2 months, and yeah, that's really messed up. I mean, that's like
It's extortion.
it's extortion, pretty much. It's like, well, it is extortion, and then the same people go around saying, so I know, like, you might have a different opinion on abortion. Like, you don't care; it is their choice. It's just women's choice. The guys should be out of it. I believe I talked to you about this,
Yep.
and you're just like, the guy should be out of the decision completely, and that kind of makes sense in a big way. But here's the thing: if you're gonna go around and say it's my body and my choice, and then project this other thing saying it's you're like, you have to get a vaccine because you're it's like
It's not your
destructive.
choice.
It's not your the choice. You can't have a double standard like that. You
Yeah.
just
Okay.
can't, like.
So
So that's when I come back into the abortion uh conversation. I say, well, you say nobody else can have a choice, but you're affecting all these other people and then telling them to do this other thing with their body, and you're not them. Why can't I tell someone who's not me what to do with their body if you're telling me what to do with my body? So I'm
yeah, I
back into
mean,
the conversation.
so here's kind of where I stand on that whole abortion thing, right? And I'm with Scott Adams, right? The Dilbert guy. He's like, look,
Okay.
it's only women, right,
Mhm.
can really have that, can really come to an agreement and a solution and all that. But the reality of it, my viewpoint is like, okay, well, here's the reality, right? And I'm going to get into why the right loses 100% of the time. Let's get to that in a second.
That's
So it's a women's thing because guess what? It's a no-win situation for any guy. If any guy gets in there, then the women politically just bash him over the head, no matter what. Like he can take one side and then the other, and no matter what. And so, hey, if you're a guy, just be like, okay, well, women have put us in our place in a societal fashion, right? They put us in our place, and this is our place. So you guys go and figure it out yourselves. 95% of guys just don't give a shit. Again, we just don't care.
right.
Like, all right,
Right.
whatever. Maybe in my own personal life, right? It's a different thing. But as far as the
Well,
argument is concerned, who fucking cares? I just want to go about my life. You guys figure it out because you've put us in our place. And if you sit around and ask, like, hey, where are all the men? Eh, we're where you put us, baby. And in terms of like
you're right.
your argument about or your point about like, hey, on the one hand, you can say my body, my choice, but then you don't apply it on the other end. I mean, that's a very like logical thing. And here's why the right loses every time because the
Mhm.
left goes for the win. They don't even care. They don't care
They
if
do. They go for the win.
they go
It's
for the
true.
jugular and they can be down to, let's say the Senate was 99 Republicans and one Democrat. That one Democrat's going to win almost every single time because they freaking go for it. The right is obsessed with well, we're right. We're on the right side of the argument. They're obsessed with being correct and they lose every time. They lose. So what you're starting to see is the younger generation of I don't even know if you call them the right, but the people who don't want to, they're sick and tired of being messed with and lectured to and called a bunch of names. And these are the guys with like the bushy beards and the arm tattoos. They're like, we're not even Republicans, man. But I guess we'll just meet here on this field and do our battle. And that generation of dudes is like, we've had enough, and we don't care about being right. We could care the fuck less if we win the argument. We're not Ben Shapiro, you know what I mean? He's like a master
Right.
debater,
Yeah.
but his side loses 100% of the time, 100% of the time. But he goes around being like, I mean, I love listening to the guy, and I don't think anyone could beat him in a debate, like nobody. But he's on the
Right.
losing side 100% of the time.
That's true. Because he never well, he's not very empathetic, that's for sure. Um but you're right. It's like you're right. I don't know. They do lose because they don't go for the win. Um I'm trying
But
to
it's
think about
turning,
this
man.
this this abortion thing, man. Like, you're right. They hold us to the fire. They don't they create the definitive, like, we have to make this choice, but they don't allow the other the guys to like make a choice about, you know, uh pay about paying child support or even raising the kid. Like, it's not a two-way thing. If it's your
Yeah.
body, your choice, you make the choice, and fine, it's your responsibility. It should be like, in a certain way, it should be your responsibility completely. Like, why
Yeah.
do we have to be there? Why do you have to get the government to like go in and make everybody pay child support? And the people on the right are fine with paying child support for sure. They're like, okay, fine, because at a certain point, I do believe it is like a mutual decision, because obviously if I have an idea that I'm going to have a child, or it's going to be a part of me that's going to be creating a child, I start to gain an emotional connection to whatever, to that formulation of that child, whether or not I want to call it a person or not a person. Like, the idea of having a person that's like a little mini me running around starts to formulate, you know?
Yeah, I like Dave Chappelle has the best line. He's like, "Hey, your body, your choice. My money, my choice." Right?
Right, right. That's
And that's when the crowd goes like,
I don't
"Oh,
I don't know
oh."
it. I don't know if Dave Chappelle would take that line right now, but yeah, I hear that. I love Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
like,
so here's the thing. I believe there's always the pendulum swingeth, right? And I'll use this.
mm,
So 1960s was like another round of feminism, feminist rights, women's rights, mainly like in the workplace, right? Hey, I don't need to just be a secretary and a teacher. I can be everything else. Okay, cool. But that led to like some pretty stressed out women, right? You go through the commute, you eat the crappy food, and you're putting on weight. And oh, by the way, you still got to cart the kids around and make dinner and all that stuff. And so you saw an explosion in divorces starting in like the 80s, 70s and 80s. And those kids, everyone I grew up with, their parents were divorced.
wow.
And so the pendulum swung. Those kids, and we're all in our 40s, mid 40s now, but those kids, the of divorce, like none of them are divorced, none of them.
Mm,
And what they did was they delayed marriage. Parents fought a lot about money. Okay, fine, I'll delay marriage and get on a better footing before, and then fewer kids. So instead of 3 point something kids, it's 2 point something kids, because kids cost money, and let's just not fight and have the stress and all that. But now you get a bunch of old people who are like never going to see their grandkids grow up. And the
mm.
grandkids are never going to, all they ever saw was these decrepit grandparents, right? So I think that those children are going to wind up swinging the pendulum back and start having kids earlier. So I think if you look at it in 50 to 100-year cycles, you always have these back and forth. So back to the whole, not necessarily abortion thing, but the women thing and the child support thing and all that. I'm starting to see articles I never ever thought I would see, and it's women being like, "Oh my God, we're on the losing end of this whole, like it's hard to find a man. Like men won't marry us." It's like, well, yeah. What did you think, right? What did you think? I mean, marriage was basically, if you boil it down, if you were some alien coming in and doing an analysis on the human species, they'd be like, yeah, there's this thing called marriage, and it's basically a way for a man to secure a mother, like someone to mate with, who would stick around and raise the children, and then grant sexual access, right? Boom, there you go. And so, well, if you granted the sexual access because of feminism and change of moral values and all that, and then you had this gigantic sledgehammer of a just a pile driver on a man's balls if he does have a kid with you. Like, all society's rules are tilted against the male.
Mm.
Men are just
Yeah.
like, yeah, fuck it, man. I could always walk around and get some woman pregnant, but I ain't gonna stick around and sign this contract, this one-sided government contract that basically ruins my life and causes me to like commit suicide after I run out of ramen noodles to eat because that's all I can afford. And so men are just saying, screw it. I'm not gonna get married. And enough of them, all it takes is a few at the margins. And now you got
Right,
women being
right.
like, damn it, we can't find a man. Well, yeah, of course you can't. Who the hell would sign up for that, right?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, I definitely want like a long-term relationship where I can find that significant other for sure. But I see what you're
Nah, no,
saying.
no.
So maybe I'm
You want a
not,
harem of women.
maybe I'm not like uh,
I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe I don't fall in that category. I do understand what you're saying, though. It does make things harder because you're going around and you're seeing who's out there, and then you're just like, well, these people are just like looking to, you know, obtain control and kind of like abuse you and you're like as a man, you know, so why am I going to deal with that? And you're just gonna, I mean, it just makes the search harder because you're just like, I just want somebody I can get along with and have a good time with and appreciate and learn to love, you know. um
You know what a good model is, by
I
the
don't
way,
know.
for that?
Yeah.
It's just good old fashioned lust. Like, man, I gotta have that woman. You know what I'm saying? And if she
Yeah.
thinks the same way, that's actually not a bad basis for a long-term relationship. Yeah, there's gonna be bumps and stuff like that, but who cares, right? I think there's that, and then the opposite end of that, which would be, hey, all the elders got together and sort of, picked matched us up, and there was wisdom in that because
All right.
take away that whole the love portion, which dies off quickly, the lust and all that, then you're left with like, I think she would be a good match for him because of this and that, and blah, blah, blah. She would be able to control his impulses and so on. So there's that too.
Well, I
But
mean, I think the social norms have definitely evolved. Like once upon a time, as you know, like obviously the woman needed the man, and the man was the only one like obtaining work. Um, Now everything's accessible. The women don't actually need men. There's all these access to these like Tinder datings and OkCupid and all these other apps that you're just like, well, when I need something like with the opposite sex, I can just kind of get it almost instantly. So I don't need to opt into something more long term. It's just, I'm not saying it's my attitude, but it is the attitude that's accessible and now in the air. So everybody can kind of fend for themselves. So they can be more, so we're all much more on an independent realm than the family system that was happening, like, you know, back in the earlier 1900s or, yeah.
yeah, look, I'm not a fan of all these old fashioned things either, man. I gotta be honest. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, that whole, stick around forever and ever with
Mhm.
someone and be miserable together for 50 years because you had to. Screw that. If you're not happy, split. So
Right,
whatever. No
right. But
one's
you shouldn't set yourself up to split though. Like that shouldn't
right,
be the
right.
idea. I think that's definitely become an underlining idea. Before my grandmother passed away, I definitely had conversations with her about this. And back in her day, it's just like, you know, I'm married to the person. I made that dedication. I'm going to stick to it and ride it out. It doesn't matter what we face. That's what we're riding out because we made a big enough commitment to like ride it out. Now it's like, yeah, I get married to the person. Um, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out. Like the formula does of marriage doesn't actually make sense anymore, kind of to a certain point. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
wouldn't know. I
yeah,
never really had the singles life. So I did the old school, like right out of college thing.
yeah.
So I wouldn't know. I don't know what I don't know what life is like on the other side of the screen, you know?
Oh man, yeah, it's rough
Don't
out
really
here,
care.
man. It's rough. It is. It
But
is
it should,
rough,
you know what
man.
I've
It's
heard
like
from guys?
it's like you'll like meet a girl or like come across a profile and then they'll be like you'll be reading it. You're like, yeah, yeah, that's me. That's me too. You know, I'm happy, healthy. You know, I'm making money. I could obtain a family, and then everything's like a check mark. And then they're just like, yeah, you're not my style. It's like, yeah, well, like you just wrote out what you were looking for. Why am I not your style? I
You
don't
know
know.
why?
Like
Here's
it's
why.
rough.
Because there's 3,000 other dudes
Right,
waiting
right,
to
right.
poke his thing into that profile, if you know what I mean.
I know,
And
I
so
know.
she's sitting there like, dude, I got options. But here's a really, really good article to read. It came out like a little while back. It's old news, but it's titled something along the lines of like I'm like I met the love of my life. I married the love of my life and then left him because I thought I could do better. And now I'm like 40 something years old,
Right,
unmarried,
right.
childless and alone, you know?
I think that's definitely a reoccurring story in this state. And back in like the old school where everything wasn't like nationalized or federalized. I guess nationalized isn't a good word to use these days. I don't know. Federalized. It's just everybody lives in villages. So the person you met was the person you had access to. So everybody would be willing to like, it's not just one and done first date. You hang out with the person, you get to know them for a little while. It's like now, like you said, there's 3 million people out there that's like you can choose from. If you don't like this person, everything doesn't click exactly.
Well, for women, there are. For women, there
Yeah.
are. For men, it's much tougher.
Right,
You kind
true.
of got to take what you can get, I guess. I'm just guessing because I wouldn't know, but it's a shame that it's all come down to like some freaking database checklist, And
Mhm.
fuck that.
Right.
I think that's a mistake. Like, do you really? What are you gonna have to talk about if they're like exactly like you? I,
The
I
truth
guess
is,
there's a
yeah,
bunch of people matching up
the
with like their siblings and stuff somehow online. Like, oh
the
shit, I
the
thought you were perfect,
checklist
but
the
you're just my
checklist
sister.
doesn't work. The checklist, even like if things match up, it's like you have to actually get to know somebody. You have to see the chemistry, you have to see the back and forth. That's the only thing that really works. So spending time with people is actually the only way that this works, not this like profile laundry list of things.
Hey, you know what,
um
man? I tell you what your number one thing is. You put it out there. Be like, hey, I'm Mark. I'm basically a general good guy, make some money, I'm drug free and all that. But the biggest thing is, man, I don't wear a mask. I'm not unvaccinated, and
right,
you'll wind up with a ton of like minded people, and that's a start.
that's true. I mean, I think like political. I know like people are putting on a lot of emphasis on this political thing lately, but it also equivates. I don't know if that's a word. Uh,
It is now.
like your value system too. It like falls in line. Uh, People who are more conservative have conservative values. People who are more liberal have liberal values, and they are very different. So it's a very easy marker to say, hey, I believe in this and I support this. And because things are so like compartmentalized now, uh, that's where you match up, you know?
Yeah, but you know what? On that matching up thing, I think younger people have got it all wrong. The matching up thing occurs organically over time in your relationship. And there's no such thing as like, oh, you're a perfect, you verified perfect match. We're going to get along. No,
Right.
man.
That's true.
Because what happens is there's a process that occurs where when things get tough, like the baby's up all night and you got a big presentation to the boss and stuff like that, and when the stress hits you and when the
Mm,
rocks in the backpack start getting real heavy, two people, if they have learned to turn towards each other, they're going to work. If they turn
that's
on each
true.
other, it doesn't matter how compatible you are, it ain't going to work, brother. You know what I
Actually,
mean?
yeah, I believe that too. I actually think that, like, I don't know, I go back and forth with this idea. I actually think political ideas also don't equate a good relationship, because I'm like really good friends with people who are on the other side of the political aisle as me. And it's really about goals, kind of like things you're working on together, getting along and respecting other people's like views. Honestly, I don't have a problem with somebody having opposite views than me. I think it's actually even more interesting that way in certain ways. So
Yeah, I like the Dennis Miller approach, and it's easy for him to say he's got kind of like, fuck you money. Um,
yeah,
but Dennis Miller's like, don't really give a shit, it's all guesswork. Yeah, so one side is what? Oh, so 100% sure that their guesses are correct. It's
hmm,
like, nah, I'll go for the people who kind of say, yeah, I'm not so sure. Let me figure this out. By the way, that's why you take all the interpersonal or the sensationalism away from Bill Clinton. He learned
Mhm.
early on, with the 1994 disaster. He
Yeah.
learned like, no, 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 don't be so rigid and be only for your party. He wound up being a guy who was like, yeah, I guess I'm just sort of figuring this out. Let me try and figure this out the best that I can. And he was pretty open about it. He wasn't like Mr. Absolute. And it's these guys that are absolute, which are the dangerous ones and the ones that tend to turn people off. So
Yeah,
whether that be
that's
abortion,
true.
if you think about it, there's never been a president elected who's ever been kind of like rigid on abortion. They always, and you could
Right.
call it political cowardice, but I think another way to look at it maybe is, hey man, they're not so sure. They're not going to be like freaking
I mean,
Mussolini, and we don't like electing Mussolinis.
I'm not gonna lie, in a certain sense, like, well, I mean, the president now, Biden, who's the president, he was doing this like political coward thing, and now he's doing like an extreme thing, especially with like his views on Afghanistan, which nobody believes it with. And like he's just doing it in the wrong spots, and it's not working at all for either way. Like it's not working on this like let's do the bipartisan thing here, and then like let's be really rigid over here, because there's no consistency in that. So it just he's like not getting a lot of approval on either ends,
You know what's funny?
you
They
know?
say politics makes strange bedfellows.
Okay.
Actually, Trump and Elizabeth Warren happen to work on a lot of things together pretty well, mainly about
Really?
like
Hmm.
consumer choice and stuff. But you know who's all in on Biden's Afghanistan thing?
Who's that?
Pat Buchanan.
Oh, really?
Oh my
Wow.
God, read
Okay.
his stuff. He's like, yeah, man. God bless Biden for sticking to his guns and leaving. And if that, obviously it has a certain cost, but he's not going to be swayed. And
Right.
yeah,
I mean,
Buchanan's a
in
big
a certain sense,
isolationist.
it is actually, even though people don't agree with the idea, it is kind of a little bit refreshing that he can finally like stand up and say, "Hey, this is a definitive answer of mine." And even though it's horrible on the back end, I think it's completely wrong and it's like legit killing people as a result of it. But like, it's a little fucked up. I mean, he can
Well,
at least
listen,
stand
he
up and
had from
say, "I'm putting my foot down," and I think that's what he wanted to show, um, which he's getting a lot of
well,
heat
yeah. I
on.
mean, he let's be honest, he
Like,
completely bungled it. I thought
yeah.
that we should have just dropped a gigantic one on Tora Bora on that one
Mhm.
day where we had him trapped and just been done with it. And Bush would have been carved into that little place on the right hand side that's still open on Mount Rushmore, and
Right.
the market would have recovered and everything like that. But he decided to go all in. Like Alexander the Great didn't even freaking go in there, man.
Mhm.
But say what you will about Bush, his Afghanistan tactical strategy was, hey, special ops guys, helicopters, and horseback, believe it or not. Stanley
Wow.
McChrystal running the thing, and we're not gonna give them what they want, which is to lure a gigantic conventional force into the Hindu Kush and get chopped up. Because what we're good at militarily is the big punch out, like Mike Tyson.
Mm.
What we're bad at, we're really bad at just staying in a place and taking the hits and doing all these little things. We're really, really bad at that. Unless we go all in, like, hey, this town in Belgium has some Germans in it, and yeah, there's a bunch of Belgians, but our grandfathers just wasted them all. They didn't care, they didn't apologize. We don't do that
Yeah.
anymore. So therefore, let's not put a big land force there. Well, Obama comes in, and that became his strategy because politically, oh no, the good war's in Afghanistan. I'm going to bash you over the head for Iraq, right? So they withdrew from Iraq, which we should have done. But then they stuck a couple 100,000 guys or whatever in Afghanistan, and instantly like 800% more casualties. So say what you will about Bush, who was horrible. At least his Afghanistan strategy was denying the enemy what they really wanted, which was to chop us to bits. And then, Trump tried taking him out, and he just got taken to the woodshed. That speech he gave, he looked like he had just gotten spanked by the generals, and he kept him
Yeah.
in there and added troops. And so here we are. So Biden pulls him out. But look, I don't care, man. You had from January 20th up until now, and I'm not a military guy. by any stretch of the imagination. But if I were in charge of that, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, get the civvies out first, get the equipment out. Don't leave any equipment there. If you have to leave it because it's too expensive to airlift out, blow it up, you melt it, return it to like magma or something.
That's true. There was nothing. I mean, that's the criticism. Nothing was
They
thought out.
completely bungled it,
They're
man.
just like, I'm just gonna do this and leave. I'm not even gonna think about the citizens. I'm just gonna like get on the plane and take out the troops, and then we'll figure
Holy
about
shit,
the
it was
citizens like
horrible.
later. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. It was a horrible moment. It was the statement where it was the Biden we finally wanted. Like, we wanted him to put his foot down and like give it like a direct answer, but it was the raw. It was a horrible answer. That's why.
Greatest military
It's like,
humiliation in American history. Let's put it that way.
yeah.
Biggest humiliation in military history.
And now the
You know what?
The White House can't answer a single question related to this. They
No,
can't.
these moments matter. Pulling a little Mark Stein out of my butt, he's like, look, little moments matter. There was 1 month in, I think, 1943, where the British had more men under arms than the United States. And then by the end of the month, we had more men under arms. And that ended the 100+ year reign of the descendants of Queen Victoria and their empire over the world, and began our reign. And so Afghanistan might very well be the point where our whatever many 80-year reign of dominance over the planet, including our dollar, it ended. And in its place, think about this, in its place might very well be, for the first time in over 2,000 years, a non-Roman numeral system regime. Think about that. Think about the implications. And so these blunders, if you expand it out, I mean, this could be cataclysmic for our people. And I don't know, if only history can tell whether that was the actual moment, but it very well might have been. And so you can't bungle these things, God damn it.
Right.
And so, because the stakes are gigantic, they can last 1,000 years. So I mean, holy crap, like all you guys, I think honestly, I would go in and do a wholesale clean out of the system. I mean, everything's rotten. I'm looking right now at a chart. You can Google this and maybe jam it on this Zoom meeting or whatever, but it's growth in physicians and administrators. So it starts in 1970, and one color on the chart is physicians, right?
Okay.
And one color is administrators. And right around the early 90s, the administrators, it just pops. It goes parabolic. Well, guess what that was? HIPAA. Right? With HIPAA, right? In other words, it's an artificiality. So now, now with we're going to have some patient protection sort of I don't know, it's a legislation, but really what it is, a gigantic bludgeoning tool to punish hospital systems if they don't know the future. And so therefore, we don't know the future, but let's do every damn test known to man and have administrators and this and that. And fucking A, look at what it's done. And now I saw this thing the other day. Someone was like, hey, isn't it interesting that all the COVID deaths are happening in the hospitals? They're not happening like in people's living rooms. Every one of them's in the hospital. And so my kid was like, hey, I'm not feeling good. Let me go into the doctor. And I'm like, no. He's like, what? He got mad at me. He's like, why? I said, because I don't trust that anymore. I don't trust that whole decrepit, disgusting system anymore.
Well, I mean, the whole system's being censored. I mean, there's so many like home remedies that actually work when treating COVID, and they're all being censored. So because the doctors, what I found out actually recently, or maybe I knew this for a while, but obviously like a high percentage, maybe 45 or 50% of deaths reported in the hospital weren't actually COVID deaths. It was like somebody got hit by a car and they came in and they happened to test positive for COVID, and then they died like a few hours later. That's not really a COVID death, but that's what they were reporting.
Yeah, because there's like a $43,000 check at the end of that, I think.
Right.
some big
I think it
check,
was like 38 or
whatever.
39,000.
Yeah, it doesn't even.
Nobody even knows the real number, but yeah, it's about that. So
So
it
here's
makes sense.
so I was reading the other day, and now I'm at a point where I don't even believe anything anymore. I don't believe what I read. I don't believe what I see on TV. I don't even believe the history anymore. I don't believe there's like 8 billion people on the planet, because I've
Hmm.
been trained now, largely thanks to Fauci and the government. And you can throw Trump in there too. If you're a Trump fan, you cannot escape from the fact that all of this started under him. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you're a Bush fan or a Republican fan, it cannot escape your notice that all the spying on citizens and all that, it all started under a Republican. So I think
Right.
Republicans do more damage, honestly, than Democrats. At least with Democrats, you have some opposition. Republicans, you get all the Sean Hannity's being like, yeah, this is the greatest thing ever, and then they regret it later. But hey, you help propagate the thing. But I don't believe anything anymore. But what I did read was contained in the contracts with nation states and these pharmaceutical companies. Like one major nation was like, yeah, man, in the contract it says we are not going to be allowed to use ivermectin.
Right. Ivermectin is one
And
of
I'm
them.
like, well, if these contracts were signed, what, 18, 24 months ago, what the hell did they know about that? And now they're messing with people's lives. I think India is prosecuting like one of the scientists of the World Health Organization who came out and tweeted, no ivermectin, no, you shouldn't have that as part of your treatment protocol. And some of those like states within India, they'd be regional states, they jettisoned that from their treatment protocol. And as a result, doing like side by side comparison of the states with similar populations that didn't jettison it, like it was night and day. So they're prosecuting her for mass murder, and they might go for the death penalty. She's an Indian
Mm,
citizen. Like, I don't know, nothing ever
wow.
happens to these people. And I don't even believe that. I believe that story may be sensationalism as well. But hey, if y'all have that in the contract, which should be made public, what did you know back then? And then all these people talking about Nuremberg, like now maybe they have a point. And on the ivermectin and the hydroxychloroquine and all that,
Mhm.
you know what? Like everything's become a my side, your side political football where someone could come out and be like, hey, if you just drink clean, purified water, that can help. And one side will be like, oh, Trump said it. No, stay away from water. Drink Brondo instead. It's got what you crave, right?
That was the whole
And
like
we do
somebody
that with everything.
that was the whole like when Trump said take this drug, somebody misconstrued it as like fish tank cleaner or something. That was I
Yeah,
think that was
yeah.
it.
And
And then they were like, okay, well, because he said this and somebody said it was like fish tank cleaner, somebody took fish tank cleaner, and now it's like
well,
it's
that's
his all
just
like I know it's
Darwin
dumb, but it's
Award,
just like yeah, yeah, I know. Oh, and then it was Trump's
Well,
fault,
here's
of
the thing.
course.
I heard an interview.
So
I know, and honestly, like, I heard an interview with the guy who leads. He's a physician that leads an organization to warn about the side effects of the group of medicines that has hydroxychloroquine. Right, it includes
mm,
quinine, and it's like, yeah, we have a very very long history as a nation of giving troops that are going to go into jungles, giving troops this stuff, and we have to take care of them for the rest of their lives because of these gigantic neurological problems. So he's like,
mhm,
it's got to be, it's very complex. It's kind of like the Atkins diet. It's very
mhm.
complex. You don't just do it at home. And it's got to be, a treatment regimen administered by a guy who actually knows what the hell he's doing.
It's kind of like the Church of Scientology. Like you take our course and we will tell you what the course is, but you can't do anything outside of the course,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
What the
Like
hell? And
that's
then,
because
so
none of
people,
the things that you do are effective. So it's like for example, now they were trying to mandate like kids having the vaccines under 12 or something like that now, but just recently the CDC was like um, now everybody 12 and over should get it, but still Dr. Fauci is like doubling down. He's like, but if you're 5, you should get it. But now he's going back on his previous argument saying, well, now that the CDC and the FDA approved the vaccines, now you should be required to go get them. But it only became, that approval was only recent. So now he's not only being like, okay, when now we've proven it, we have a certification, but he's adding new things to it that aren't even certified yet, that people are still like buying into. They're like, okay, yeah, well, definitely, if people 12 and over can get it, now, the 2 and 3-year-olds can probably get it too. So let's just add them to the number and take control. Like, I don't even know where he stands. Obviously, it's pretty obviously that it's just about like the paycheck somewhere.
Yeah.
That
So,
these guys are getting.
are you familiar with the sleight of hand that is alleged to have taken place with that Pfizer FDA approval?
What do you mean the sleight of hand? I'm familiar that it was like in an emergency state where they were releasing it, and that's why everybody was getting it.
Okay, so here's the sleight of hand.
Like,
right?
it was being produced while it was being distributed.
Yeah,
and,
this is disgusting, and this is another sort of like, hey, I'll add that to the Nuremberg people. You know what I mean? Another thing, notch in their quiver.
Yeah.
So what the FDA did was they came out on the same day, and they said, oh, okay, well, they issued 2 letters. They're like 12, 13-page letters, and I've read them both. And on the one hand, they said, okay, the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine has full FDA approval.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the Pfizer-whatever else, the one that's being administered now, that we're going to extend their EUA, the emergency use authorization. So along with emergency use authorization comes no liability, right? No liability.
Right.
Can't sue them if you die or you're blinded or whatever. Hey, you can't sue them. And honestly, I think that number one, where the fuck are the courts, right? Because a government doesn't have the right to do that. I don't think they have the power as a natural law. A government doesn't have the power to give someone the ability to make it legal for someone to kill someone or do damage. The government does not have the ability to say, oh yeah, I hereby state that you have the ability to dump toxins in the water, right? No, that wasn't your right to give. It's not your power to give.
If you think about it, just on a side note, like, it is the perfect setup. Where are the courts? Everybody's at home. You have to be locked down. There's a deadly virus out here.
Yeah,
so like nobody can go to court to like do anything about any of this
worthless.
Stuff. So it's
they're worthless in my book as an American citizen. They're worthless.
They're probably worthless.
But getting back to the emergency use.
Yeah.
So the FDA gave approval for the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which isn't even being manufactured. It's not in existence. Okay, no one's gotten that because it doesn't exist. So the sleight of hand was the media, right? Oh yeah. The Pfizer vaccine now has FDA approval. Yeah. But no. So everyone's like, oh yeah. And instantly that day, all these county governments, state governments, and corporations were like, yep, mandate, vaccine mandate. You got to get it. Now it's got FDA approval. No, it fucking doesn't. No, it doesn't. And how many millions of people ran out and got it, but they can't sue if something bad happens because, oops, no, you got the one that got the EUA. And no, I'm sorry, the media didn't tell you that, did they? And so here we are, and you can criticize the media and all that, but whatever. Go back to here's an interesting thing about the media. Go back and look at the official White House portrait of Franklin Pierce, President Franklin Pierce. And in that portrait, he's got like whatever the version of the New York Times was at the moment, but he's got that newspaper in his hands crumpled up, like in a white rage. And he made the portraitist paint it that way. Okay, they were so vicious with him and he freaking hated him. So the media is always going to be the media, right? They're always going to be the media.
I'm like super critical of the media, and honestly, this has been a result of everything that's happened. But as a bottom line for all of this, you shouldn't look to the media for like you to make life decisions. And unfortunately, a lot of people have been doing that this last year. And it's just like all their life choices and the way they interact with the world have been directed to based on what the media says. And that's just something that you shouldn't do. The media
Yeah,
is always
listen,
lying to you.
but
They're all
I'm a guy who thinks like, hey, well, it is what it is, and don't. I think it's very dangerous for anyone to say we got to do something about the media.
mm,
Personally, I think what the solution is on this whole thing is that I think there should, and we do this all the time with corporations, right? When the railroad trust got too big,
right.
society had to put them down, and really by
I mean, I don't know if that happens anymore because
oh, it
obviously
will.
there's Amazon and Apple and Walmart. You could think of it like uh,
Yeah, I mean, say
nobody's
what you will
putting these
about
down.
Amazon.
They're
Everyone
just
loves to
too.
hate on Amazon. I don't.
Amazon's huge.
That's
Like,
fine, but I don't feel like Amazon's really done a lot of abuse, right? You can say like workplace practices and all that, but there are laws on that. They'll
I don't
wind
know.
up.
I kind of
Yeah.
disagree because I work with Amazon
Okay.
sellers on Amazon, and I think they steal a lot of money. But that's just
Okay.
like
All
a
right.
lot of my. But that also gives me a job, so I'm not really complaining.
Got it. Hey, yeah. I don't
So
see
it's like
Amazon as like a bad guy. I don't
I.
know why everyone hates on them other than King of the Mountain. But if you go back
Okay.
in time, the railroad guys, the steel guys, Carnegie and them, at the end of the day, the labor force had to wind up beating the crap out of and murdering people before the politicians were like, all right, we got to do something about that because there's more of you people than there are of donors. I can always get new donors. Okay, fine. We got to
Sure.
clamp down on you guys. So that's kind of what it takes. We've done that several times in our history. We're getting to the point we're going to do it again. Hopefully, there's not a bunch of people getting beaten up and murdered, but sometimes, I wouldn't be surprised because that's the way things have to go right before the politicians get up off their ass. But with the media, I kind of think what would solve it is, hey, no more conglomerate ownership of media because it's apparent what
Mhm.
happens is these gigantic corporations will own a media arm, and the media arm has disproportionate power to sway politicians, and then no one touches the corporations. It's sort of like, hey, here's my hitman, so you're gonna let me do what I'm gonna do, or I'm gonna send Rocco out to you, right? And Rocco is
Right.
like CNN or whatever.
This is like
And I
the
think
argument
that
with
if you make the media companies stand on their own 2 feet, like, hey, you got shareholders, you got to answer to, you got profit and loss to answer to, you go and do what you're gonna do, but you're not gonna hide in the balance sheet of a gigantic, massive conglomerate where your operation losing money isn't even a rounding error for someone like AT&T or Disney. You're not even a rounding error, so they're going to let you go and bludgeon the hell out of society. And at the end of the day, corporations are institutions of society. It's an artificiality that came into creation with, I think, a Supreme Court ruling back in the 1800s that kind of created corporations. And well, institutions should only
Mhm.
exist to do service to mankind, like the stock market, right? Hey, the stock market is there to provide a service to mankind. And these like microsecond traders, these high frequency traders, get the hell out of this institution. Go to Las Vegas with all that genius computing power that you have, but get the hell out of our institution because you're not doing anything for society. You can have massive damage for like no benefit. So get out of our institution. And I think the same way about, hey, corporations, we're not going to let you have media arms anymore.
Mm.
And that could be done like immediately. Share repurchases, right? Hey, we're a such and such corporation, and really our financial results suck, but we're going to trick the public by saying we have rising earnings per share, where all we really did, our earnings and the numerator went down or stayed flat, but we're going to reduce the denominator, the number of shares, by buying back our own shares, and it makes it look like we're more profitable than we really are. That was
Yeah.
illegal up until the late 80s.
I mean,
So
I think it's really bad right now because I think that's what is being done with Pfizer. I'm pretty sure the same people who own CNN and also all the main news corporations, the same people who own CNN own Fox News, they own NBC, all the major mainstream also own Pfizer. So if they get together, they're basically selling a shot that they're now mandating.
Yeah, you know
Like,
what? The hippies back in the 60s were
that's
right.
really,
Yeah, the hippies said, what was it? They said, beware of interlocking corporate directorships. That's kind of what they said back
mhm,
in the day. Hat tip to Michael Savage, right? That's where I
mhm,
heard
yeah.
that term.
I
Love
think
that. He's my favorite talk show host.
he like passed away last year, didn't he? Or
No, he's still around.
oh
Yeah,
no,
he's still around. That was Limbaugh,
that was
Rush
Rush
Limbaugh.
Limbaugh.
Yeah,
But I
but
always
yeah, like
associate Michael Savage with Rush Limbaugh because they're on one after another. So that's
yeah, I think Savage is like an equal opportunity basher, which I love him for that.
right.
But you know, I think that is I don't know. People think I'm all far right, but I tell them, I say, look, I think the liberals, if you want to use that term, I think the liberals are beautiful people to a degree. Like you
Yeah,
wouldn't have the marches in the streets of white people, you know, marching in the 60s for desegregation and all that without the liberals. So
that's
in a way,
true.
they're a
That's
beautiful
true.
people. We need them. Now, if they go too far, they're an ugly people. Um, and same with the right. You know, if you just let the right wing take over everything, I mean, you wouldn't like the results. So this back and
True.
forth and fighting, and people think it's bad. I don't think it's bad enough. I think that we should have more fighting. I would like to see Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell throw some freaking punches, man. My money's on Nancy. I think she'd beat the crap out of
Uh,
McConnell.
I
But
think
I
you're
want to see
right. I
some
think you're right.
Taiwanese parliament. You know, I'd like to see
Yeah.
Taiwanese parliament because here's why. Um, we don't draw our weapons against each other. We
Mhm.
get it done before that happens. And I think the more of that, the better for the long run. And so, as ugly as things are, and as tilted as the media is, so be it, man. It gets all of the. It's like that pressure relief valve on a pressure cooker. And you look at
Yeah.
other countries that people take it and take it and take it and take it, and then boom, you know what I mean? Hey,
Mhm.
this whole group of people is wiped out. Well, maybe they should have had a couple arguments in the tavern before that, you know. Um, so back on COVID, I think I couldn't listen to the last podcast. I just ran out of time, but I think some predictions were made. One of them was, hey, if there aren't a bunch of corpses by October, there should be some recriminations. You know, that's what I said. And there haven't been
Yeah.
there haven't been a pile of corpses. We're not burning bodies day and night like they said. They tried manufacturing that, but it's not happening.
I mean,
We haven't.
unlike you, I have experienced people that I know personally that did die, but they're very few, and they also had health conditions as well.
Yeah,
So
and then the question becomes like, did they die of COVID?
yeah,
Because the FDA or the CDC, one of the two organizations, like a month or two ago, they recalled the use of PCR tests because they don't work. And the inventor of
right,
the
they did.
PCR test even said on video, it's not a diagnostic. It's not to be used as a diagnostic tool. It is a forensics tool to see
I,
if there's gunpowder at the crime scene, and then that's it.
right.
Then you use other diagnostic tools to get the fingerprints. But his is
Actually,
not a fingerprint device. It is a diagnostic device, and it produces too many false positives. And all one had to do was, like, in February of 2020, at the very beginning, there was media out there in print saying that, oh, in China it was like 80% false positive from these things. So they just kind of abandoned that. And then,
mhm,
like, hey, wait a minute, where are we getting these tests from? My money's on China, right? So we
right,
have the
right.
same result.
China's,
So did they even die of COVID, right? We don't even
yeah.
know. And I'm sorry, I don't believe anything anymore. So I don't believe I don't believe the doctors. I think they're scammers. I don't believe hospitals. They're definitely scammers, crying out loud.
That's true.
Um,
Yeah, I believe that too. I actually just recently heard that the person who actually invented the vaccine is now being censored because he is saying there was issued with the vaccine that was released to the public. So he's not allowed to talk on the vaccine.
yeah,
And he
Dr.
invented
Robert
himself.
Malone, I think his name is.
Yeah, yeah. So like,
And
what is that?
look,
Like,
he's not anti-vax. I mean, crying out loud, his whole career has been in the vaccine industry, right?
he's definitely not anti-science, that's for sure. I mean, he's
No,
a
and he's been
doctor,
very
scientist. Like, what is that? Like,
he's
you're
been
not gonna let
very
him speak?
calm and very patient about it all. You know what I mean? He's not coming out there being like, "Oh, they're here to kill you." Yeah.
Hmm.
And look, to those people, those people who are like, oh, this vaccine is gonna kill you. All right, where are all the dead bodies? There's what, 200
Right,
million
right.
Americans, they say, which I don't believe that number, but
I
okay,
mean,
150, 250 million Americans been vaccinated. If it's gonna kill everyone, where are they all? Where are all the dead bodies?
it's true. Many people did die from COVID, or at least they reported the death of COVID. But at the same time, it's like all you're hyping up. We were talking about like the school board meetings and all this hype. Like more kids died actually of the flu last year than COVID in all. So it's like, why aren't we mandating if we're going to do something, mandate that the kids get the flu shots? Uh,
Think
I don't
about
know.
this.
It's
Think
just like
about
it doesn't
this.
make any sense.
You have a high school student, right?
Mm,
You're gonna say that you're gonna destroy and make miserable, but make put them in a freaking dungeon
right.
one half of their high school experience, which should be the happiest moments of their life.
I
No
mean,
responsibility. You know what I
listen,
mean?
if it's this extreme, they shouldn't really even be going to school. That's it. They should still not be going to school if it's as extreme as the government, the school boards are making it out to be. If like legit coming within 6 feet of another kid is like that dangerous, or not wearing a mask or whatever, they legit just need to be home. That's it.
So answer me this, dude. Answer me this. And I think a large portion of that is like these petty tyrants that, if you really, really think about it, modern day society, we don't freaking need any of these people. We don't need the central government for anything but like a few things. We don't need these petty little, you know what? Keep the waterworks running and the electricity on. And other than that, how about you fuck off and leave me alone? But these
Right.
petty tyrants who have gone their whole existence in obscurity, like nobody really needs them and they know it. Oh, now, oh, their chest is stuck out. They're all self-important. And it turns out like, oh, our political system attracts people who like just pushing people around. But mark my word, their day is going to come just by viewing sort of like the temperature rising in the pressure cooker of society, just in the neighborhood. Most people are like, look, this whole COVID thing is just, I move about my life, and then every once in a while I get peppered with some inconvenience, and it pisses me off. And but as long as it's just like a tiny fraction of my day, I'm fine. But the more and
That's
more
true.
Karen factor that it is pissing people off, man. And but you're messing with people's kids, and now they're being told like, oh yeah, 1/3, 3/4, and maybe 100% of their entire high school experience is gonna be they're gonna be like in a freaking dungeon. Nah, to hell with that. But answer me this, dude. How is it that society bit the hook and swallowed the hook on this one? And we never did with Zika and swine flu, bird flu, H1N1, all that stuff, and global warming, glaciation in the 70s, acid rain, deforestation,
Right.
ozone hole. Like, how did Morgan Freeman do his penguin thing if the ozone hole should have microwaved all those little critters, right? So how do we bite on this one but not all the other ones? I have no idea.
I don't
I
know.
don't
I
know.
think I think people. It's funny. I was at a breakfast meal yesterday, and some girl was there, and she was like, "I got a vaccine," and we asked her why she got vaccinated, and she was just like, "Well, my mother got vaccinated, so I'm kind of a sheep, and I just decided to be vaccinated." I'm like, at least there's an answer I can respect. You didn't like kind of make up that you're like this crazy scientist or all the ins and outs of this, and you're just like yes, I don't agree with being a sheep, but if that's your honest truth, if that's what it was, say it like it is. That's how the world that's how a lot of people have been reacting to this, or everything as of late. They just jump on board to like one trend after another, whether it's TikTok, COVID, the environment. Like nobody stays up at night, like being like, there was a plastic bottle on the side of the road. I'm so concerned about that. That would just be, maybe there's like one or two people that do that, but very few people are doing that. But they're all jumping on the bandwagon to protect it without even taking any actions or digging it deep
It's funny you
research.
mentioned that.
It's
I
like,
saw a little Ross Perot quote today, this morning.
Okay, Ross Perot.
And it goes like this, hey, the activist isn't the one complaining and talking about the dirty river. The activist is the one cleaning up the river. In other words, like, it's
Right,
real
right, right.
easy. Yeah, and it amazes me, all this freaking energy gets poured into like a cause. And it's like, well, if you just took that energy and applied it to maybe just like some action, some direct action, like picking up the bottle of water, right? The water
Yeah,
bottle.
yeah.
Pick that trash up, dude, and you can still do your activism for crying, but for crying out loud, like all your shouting and sweating and organizing and everything like that, and you don't even do a damn thing. It's kind of like these charities that you learn like
I
95% of the money just goes back to them. They don't do anything.
I mean, in a certain sense, it does help because all their screaming and yelling is eventually heard by someone, and then somebody does do it. So it kind of works, but yeah, it's kind of like what's the Genghis Khan quote or something? Maybe like, "Do as I say, not as I do."
Is
But
that Genghis Khan? Wow.
was it?
I don't know.
Maybe I just made that up. I think it came from him. But it's just like, but really good leaders should be doing the things that they're saying. They're like, practice what you preach, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
if you're gonna be this super loud voice, actually do the things and be a part of it. Don't just be a talking head about it. Go out there and like start picking out the bottles. I'll tell you, my father, was a political voice, but I tell you, every time we went on a hike together, even
Hmm.
up until even up until the point he passed away, we would go hiking together on Crowder's Mountain in North Carolina,
Right.
and he'd hike up and see trash all over the mountain. And he also like was one of the people like running for governor
Okay.
and stuff. So he has things to say about this, but every time on the way down, we'd pick up all the trash. He'd go off the trail to like go pick up the bottle like way out in the woods that are just like, and we would just come down the mountain with piles of trash. But like he has a voice to say something, but he's actually doing the action to make it better. And that's what there should be more of that. um yeah, that's one of the things. Like, I mean, my father was all about integrity, and like, that's integrity. When you have messages, you stand behind them.
Yeah, and you know what? I bet you he wasn't like, yeah, and when we get down there, we're gonna tell everyone what we did, and be
No,
Mr. Vanity about it, you know?
not at all. He would never. He's not like, yeah, he's not like, oh, every time I go down the mountain. I mean, I'm telling about him because I'm telling you the story, but he would. It's just something he does.
Yeah, I mean, so what's your I was at one of these school board meetings, right? And and the little media guy put the microphone. No one wanted to talk to the media guy, but I'm like, you know what the hell,
Yeah,
right?
true. Huh?
I'm like, whatever. No one's gonna watch your miserable little local channel anyway. So whatever I say. So he's like, yeah, you have any new, what do you want to say to the school board? And my thing was like, look, so y'all have divided us with police tape into two sides. I think that's a mistake, perfectly honest, because those people over there, we love them. They're just trying their best, right? We're all trying to do the best that we can for our kids and stuff. We just have different opinions, which is just makes us human, number one. And it's important
Yeah.
for the school board to kind of see, what their constituents are thinking, because they got to represent us, right? And sometimes they don't know what they're supposed to, what representation really means, because they just don't know. But we got to let them know, that's why I'm here. But then what I want to tell them is this: the tide has already turned. It has worldwide. The tide's turned. You got entire nations telling these vaccine companies to pound sand, right? And going off mask and just being like, screw all this. This is a gigantic mistake. So the tide has turned. Where do they want to be? Do they want to be they want to be in front of that, or do they want to ride the wave?
Mm.
And that was what my message was. And I think that at the local level, they need to just be like, listen, man, number one size fits all. Screw you. We're here to represent our people at the local level. And look, if they decided like, yeah, I guess we're going to go back and mask for the rest of your freaking life. Okay, cool. So I sell my house, right? And someone who wants to live in that area will buy the house and I just leave, go somewhere else.
Right. That's the idea of that community thing we were talking about earlier. Like if you don't like maybe Texas is too broad of a state, but like that idea, like you don't want to live in Texas, just get out of
You want to
Texas. I know
see,
it's not like it's not that easy, but it's like still same idea.
yeah. And by the way, you want to see tyranny, like local tyranny, move to Texas. That's just my 2 cents for anyone thinking Texas is the promised land. It really isn't, man. I've seen so over the years just some stories like, good grief, that's Texas. And
I
so,
believe
yeah,
you.
they can be pretty damn overhanded with their citizens there. Every place can, right? Um,
True.
I guess it's got to be Louisiana, baby, on one of those like no roads. You're just in one of those flatboats with a big fan on the back. Like that's
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's the redoubt, man. That's the only place you're going to be left. And but look, even Chuck Norris couldn't get any privacy out there. You remember that movie? He's just
What
trying to live his own life on the bayou, man, and they come and get
what
him. But
what movie was that? I forgot
good God, I don't know. Maybe
like
one of the
sounds
Vietnam era
awesome.
movies, like I don't remember. It's back in the 80s,
Yeah,
but but is there really a look? People can only be chased to another place for so long. I firmly believe
right.
that families look for we've done it. We look for our beautiful kids, like let's raise them in, sort of like leave it to beaver, that this
Yeah.
Americana that probably never existed, quite frankly, but
No,
I think it's great to
this
search
is just
for
the
it.
media. This is just like the this is just Hollywood showing you what you think
Yeah, Norman Rockwell, right?
life is, because real life is not like that. Everybody, nobody has the perfect family. Nobody's living the dream like 2.5 kids and everything works so smooth where they just go to work and come home and like it's all good. Everybody to like people are making super big amounts of money to us people just like trying to get by. you know Everybody's got issues. This is not. Yeah.
You know what a wonderful thing is, by the way, and this might be another podcast, but um so I'm the only social media I've ever done in my life. Back in the 90s, I did a LinkedIn because that's kind of like, what you're supposed to do as a young professional. And then like Facebook when it first, I guess like 08, 09, I'm like, oh, let me see what this thing is about, right?
Sure.
And I hopped on it. I literally spent like 1 or 2 nights being like scrolling through it, and I decided, man, I've spent a lot of time on this, so I'm really not going to do anything. And then to get my 20-year reunion tickets, like the only way you could do it is Facebook. That's the only 2 times in my life I've ever used it. And then I decided, just screw it. I'll go ahead and cancel it. But then, God, you got to jump over like a 6-foot hurdle to do that. So I just left it dormant. But over the years, I just ultimately canceled the Facebook. Nothing wrong with it. It's not my thing. But I
Sure.
grew up with both feet in the non-digital world, right? And if someone wants to do it, that's fine. And then LinkedIn, I just canceled that thing. And so I'm 100% dark. I mean, the internet could be saying that I am Joseph Stalin. I wouldn't know, and I don't care. You know how wonderful that is? It's like this. I always question, why are you guys always on that phone? It's like a ball and chain, dude. It is a leash around your neck. You don't know it, but it is.
I know it's so bad. It's
And if
like,
you get off it, like here's the crazy thing. I decided a long time ago, maybe like early 2000s, I just sent this email out to all my family members, everyone in my contact list. I said, oh, hey, by the way, like this personal email account, I'm going to check it maybe once or twice a year. That's it. And even my elderly grandmother was like, what? How can you, like, how in the world can you get by? And I'm like, didn't you get by for 95 freaking years without doing this? It's my choice. I'm sick and tired of getting, you think I got to read everything, your stupid inspirational chain texts or chain emails and stuff like that. Screw that. I don't have time for this shit. And even though I delete it, I still have to go through the act of processing it. So it's kind of like going down I-95 and seeing all the south of the border Pepe, signs. And so you ever seen that? And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
well, I'm not going
totally.
to stop at that crappy place, but I got to process your stupid sign in my mind, and it's just a little irritant, but they add up. So for like 10 years, I only check my email, personal email, like once a year. And then the only thing I did was I did a mass delete and then started it. I never read emails out of that thing. I checked my work emails because that's what makes me money. And what's amazing is people wound up coming back and being like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. And I'm like, you can. You can totally get off this stuff. If you find that it makes you money, like being on Facebook, if it makes you money and sells your product or whatever, that's awesome. If
Yeah,
you really,
yeah,
really like the connection with other people, that's awesome. But you know what? No one freaking likes their family. Yeah. Like, no one
that's
likes, that's why you moved away, right? No one likes your family. You really don't give a crap about what your niece is doing. You don't care. Otherwise, you'd pick up the phone and call. So
I mean, sometimes I call my uncle, but
yeah,
but
but
yeah,
I think
I
that
hear that.
this, to your point about everyone
Um,
thinks a great cause of depression is everyone looks at the perfection being portrayed on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, I
yeah,
don't have that
totally.
perfect life.
You know what? I do go out often and stuff, so it's like I am actively participating in the world, but like when I go to the beach and everybody's taking selfies, I don't have in my head, like I'm just not inspired to just be like, oh, let's post some Instagram stuff. I just want to enjoy my time there. And I've noticed that actually, if I cut back, I've cut back from posts on Facebook a lot, and and even checking feed. I just the more I'm focused on actually participating in my own life instead of like looking at what other people are doing, the happier I think I am. And yeah,
So
that's it.
here would be
Just
a great podcast is for you to go dark for like a 2 month period, but for
mm,
me to start
interesting.
up and go active for 2 months, and then we just compare notes, right? And
I think
maybe
that's
my outlook changes, and maybe your outlook who knows? Or maybe we dig in, and
yeah.
that's something that I actually wrote down for this podcast was the digging in factor. So let's use Trump for example. Okay, so Trump, I think is if first of all he's like 70 billion years old. So
Right.
honestly, I think you did your damnedest, right? And came up short or whatever, and that's that. Like, let's move along, right? Next generation. I'm done with the baby boomers, to be quite honest.
Mhm.
Because they just don't exist in the world as it is now. Like, there's no baby boomer dominant companies left. Like IBM's supplanted by, the Facebooks and all that, Googles. So be
They're
done with you,
just
okay?
they're just Hasidic Jews and Mormons. That's it.
There
So
you go. So
mm,
I using Trump as an example on the vaccine. So he was Operation Warp Speed, and Trump is a marquee guy. He wants his name on the marquee. So no
right.
matter what the topic is, and I think the left figured this out, and they beat him. They were able to defeat him with his weakness, which is it's got to be Trump. This is going to be the biggest, most beautiful insert whatever here. And in this case, it's vaccine. Well, I got news for you. Like on your side, the people who would vote for you ain't going to turn them on this, but he is digging the hell in on like, no, no, no. So a mistake made, they dig in. It's a human nature to dig in. I think that's why second term presidents are not successful for the most part, because the mistakes that they made, instead of just fessing up and being like,
Mm,
yeah, you know what? I probably made a mistake there. They dig in, and they won't
right.
move. So
Right.
when the government lays a policy down on all 50 states, such as, hey, wear 2 masks and get this thing shoved up your ass to check to see if you've got COVID. And that's for real. The Chinese made the State Department people take a 6-inch thing up their ass and they swab it 6 times in either direction. I kid you not,
Wow.
it's a real
Wow.
story.
Some
And
people
the
might
Chinese
enjoy
had to be
that.
like,
Yeah, some
what a
people might.
bunch of retards, you know? But like
I,
when they imposed this thing, and then it turns out like, no, 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 that wasn't the right way to go.
mhm.
Doesn't matter. They're going to dig in and they're going to double down. That's why I hate
Right.
this
No.
one size fits all thing, you
Mhm.
know, kind of, circling back to everything, as Jen Psaki would say, which, by the way, like she's taking a lot of flack. God bless her.
That's true.
She got a tough job, man.
I mean, I don't feel sorry for her. She put herself in that position, and she she's like, she knew she was gonna come up try to be like answering questions that she can't answer. So
Well, that's their
you know,
job. That's their
yeah,
job. Perfectly honest. I would love an executive administration, a president, and all that that just wasn't in our face every day. Like, what's up? What's this bizarre thing about the spokesman coming out for the daily press conference? Fuck that, man.
right.
I want the president up there to tell us to do the my fellow American thing with the fireplace in the background to wish us a Merry Christmas or Happy
Uh,
Thanksgiving, and
I mean,
so major Memorial Day sort of things. Or let me know if there's like a war. But other than that, why don't you do your thing and leave me the hell alone? Like, I don't want you in my face. I don't care. Nobody cares.
right,
Everybody
right.
hates the politicians. So you know
That's
what?
true.
Go with it and just disappear. Right? That's I would love that. I would love that, and then instantly the temperature of this place would go way down, and we'd probably give them a lot more leeway too.
I totally agree. Like, just come on once every 2 weeks, give us like a little update, tell us what's up, and then sit there and answer questions, like legit answer questions, um, once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, but
And
right now it's a drama fest, man. It's a every day. It's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
oh
I
no,
know.
you didn't. Uh-oh,
It's
uh-uh.
it's so much of a back and forth. It is like a boxing match. It's like today it's like, oh, they got a hit, but check out this Republican governor over here. He just did this bullshit. Like, and then it's like, check out this liberal like state over here, this blue state, whatever. They just did this bullshit. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is like.
Yeah.
It's a boxing match right
So
now. It's
what are your? Let's make some predictions, man. This is on the spot sort of stuff with
all
COVID.
right.
How's this thing conclude?
Ooh,
Like
COVID,
Afghanistan?
COVID. Everybody dies. That's it. We're all done. No, no, like Afghanistan. No, no, okay. No, I guess it kind of just fizzles out. Um, General predictions are just
I know.
there's just gonna be people that are forever gonna wear masks because and just be like uh latched onto this vaccine stuff because mainly because they don't have anything else to do. Like I said, when I go away from social media and I'm not paying attention to it, it's not providing me any satisfaction or dissatisfaction. I'm just more so focused on my own life. But a lot of the people out there don't really have anything to focus on, so they're just gonna hyper focus on what's going on with COVID because it's always going to be there. So they're always going to be advocating for it. Maybe I think it'll fizzle down to maybe like 30% people will care and then everybody else will kind of just move on.
Yeah, I think when so my prediction would be when another topic supplants it,
Hmm.
then it'll just go away and all the governors stop harassing us about it, you know. But I don't think there's going to be any massive wave of like the red wave coming and wiping it all away. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's how it goes on the COVID front, but I could be wrong, man. I could be wrong. I feel like they've pushed too hard. You know what I mean? They have definitely pushed too hard.
I mean, I think maybe in 5 years it'll just die out. It'll just fizzle out and then it'll just be like COVID just becomes one of these like same thing as the flu. Nobody really talks about it. Nobody really cares.
Oh my God, the
It's
damage done
just
though. You know what I mean? The $10
yeah,
trillion or so
it's
that's
just
been
done.
printed.
Yeah, and then like I said, there will be a few minute people that have kept on just like SARS, that are still walking around thinking that they're getting this thing. And I mean, definitely a lot more than a few because it just was so escalated. So maybe instead of the 5% of the people that usually would just walk around, maybe it's like 20 or 30% people will stay out there still
Do you think
advocating
that
for it.
anyone
I
will be
don't know.
held accountable?
No, I don't think
Okay.
anybody's held
Do you think
accountable.
that
I
the
think
media or the government has lost any credibility in a meaningful way? Like, oh, we used to be able to do X, but we can't anymore because people don't believe us. I don't think
Honestly,
so.
I don't think so either. I think
Yeah.
everything just kind of reverts. Like, some things swing to this side, they swing to that side, they swing back. Everybody knows that the government lies like constantly, and the people that are interested in following it, even including myself, are just going to revert back to like, oh, well, we follow it. We don't really care if like the side's like a lying or not, or like this is what we kind of believe in and this is what we latch onto. So we just it just reverts back to normalcy and everything's a lie, and we just kind of like follow it a little bit blindly and just say um but there are no like big things, although it might just continue with these big things that are going on, and like everybody just jumps on one side of the aisle or the other.
So basically, what you're just saying is that society is the cat, and the government is the guy with the laser pointer, and we're just going wherever they point the laser.
Kind of, but I'm also saying that like you're watching a movie and you see a guy pointing the laser or something, and then you watch the movie, then you forget that the laser was ever pointed at all.
Got it. Yeah.
You're just like, yeah, I watched the movie. I don't remember there being a laser there, but I remember it was a good movie. It just, yeah, disappears.
So what I hope comes out of this, I think we're suffering as a society from sort of like post industrial success where the all the major aspects of hardships of life have been eliminated. Like we just walk down the stairs and get whatever we want to eat out of the refrigerator, right? No
Yeah.
more of that like hunting, or worrying about the crops failing and stuff like that. So we've become soft and so on, and part of that is that we were like, oh, no judgmentalism anymore, everyone's equal, right? And I'm hoping that shit is gone, because this has brought out the freaking ugliness in people, which is going to cause everyone to sort of be on their toes against their fellow man, which is maybe not such a bad thing. And then the other thing that I hope is that next time the government comes out with something, our natural impulse is two middle fingers until proven otherwise. That's what I hope. I know it's not going to happen, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I
you
think
know,
you're right. I think you're right. But when do you think when is the time frame for this to happen? Like people to just like, reobtain some bowls and just like,
well, our
say we
culture.
believe in this, and, not be scared that other people don't believe exactly the same thing you believe in. When is somebody going to put their foot down against the mob? This is,
I used to think that our culture is such that we will not be told what to do for very long. Like we'll go with it in the face of, the unknown or whatever,
now that's
but
like
not for
popular.
long.
That's like
Huh?
popular now to be told what to do
Holy shit! I know.
and not, yeah, and not
Yeah.
try to
So
figure anything out for your own self.
I'm gonna say time frame wise, we're getting to the point where there's gonna be a critical mass of people who say fuck you to it all. And you can use the masks in Home Depot thing. So in the
Mm.
beginning, I walk into Home Depot, I don't have a mask, they won't let me in. I'm like, okay, whatever, it's cool. Um, and then like, and I never ever. Luckily, I live close enough to another state where they don't care, right? They're like, most of us are morbidly obese in this population, so we don't freaking care.
Yeah.
So I just do my shopping there, and but it went from so in a place where you don't have to wear a mask, it went from, hey, not that many people are in a mask, and then boom, right? It over a month, everyone's in a mask. And then it went to, okay, well, now you go into Lowe's, Home Depot, and nobody's in a mask. And then, oh, Delta variant, oh, everyone's back in a mask. The whole time, I'm like, well, I'm just me. I've never changed. My kids have never changed. We don't freaking wear masks anywhere, because honestly, if we were designed, our creator designed us to like to restrict our breathing, they would have put like a little platypus thing over our nose, and we would be able to move it over there if we had to. But we're able to
I think
process a lot of,
we
what's that?
have platypuses over our nose. They're called nose hairs. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
exactly, right? So don't trim those things. Anyways,
Right.
so the I mean, I haven't changed, but everyone keeps going like, I'm gonna wear a mask and then not wear a mask and then wear it over my chin, but at least I have it on. And to me, I think they're freaking weirdos, man. But I've gone from the normal one to the weirdo and
Mm,
back to the normal one and then back to the weirdo. And it's like, no, I never change. I'm just me. You're the freaking weirdo in my eyes, and I'm the weirdo in your eyes. You're just going with like, oh yeah, the Jets made it to the playoffs. Yeah, I'm a Jets fan. Uh-huh. Sure, you always were, right? You always were. Yeah, there you go. Oh, the Saints won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I've always been a Saints fan. Right. Yeah, the only
right,
one.
right. Yeah,
So
true, true.
so I'm like, all right, I think what winds up happening is once there's a critical mass of people who think, hey, you know what? Oh, you still believe you still believe you're still buying Cabbage Patch Kids, you're still buying Beanie Baby, you're a freaking retard. I think once society reaches that point and it's a critical mass where most people don't want to be looked at as an outlier, as a weirdo, then it all ends. And what that point is time frame wise, I don't know. We were almost there, and then they Delta
Mm,
varianted us back into it. And I'm like, well, that's nice
yeah,
because oh, what's the scientific test for the Delta variant? Oh, it doesn't exist. Oh, okay, but there's just this Delta variant. Okay, cool.
right.
You know what's happening, by the way?
Hmm.
They're trying to reconstitute feudalism. So under the feudal system, if someone ever got enough like resources, where they were sort of like an outlier, the church or the lord would just the lord of the manor would just be like, oh, I have an emanation from God that says that I'm going to take that stuff.
Mm,
And you know what, it came
interesting.
to, once again, the masses had to beat the shit out of and murder people at the top. And they were like, look, you can't do something to me unless it passes the sort of common senses test. Like if it can't be seen or touched or felt or heard, then no, fuck that. You don't have the power to do that. That's where the term common sense comes from, by the way.
Mm,
And we've twisted it into this sort of like, euphemism, but that's where it came from. So they're telling us you're going to have a reimposition of feudalism where everything meaningful in the world is owned and managed by us. You're only free to choose like your iTunes and getting crap delivered to you by Amazon. But you know what? You're not allowed to do anything meaningful. That's our domain now. And it's because of, this thing. And it's like, well, society they went along with it at first out of a sense of security
yeah,
and all that. And like, we are all in it together bullshit. But now they're starting to wake up and be like, hey, whoa, 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 wait a minute. But the problem with that is all throughout human history, you give the elites a power, you vote it in or you voluntarily give it to them, you got to fight to get it back. And we're
yeah,
not a fighting
yeah.
people. Our generations now, all the generations of fighting people are gone. We're not a fighting people in a kinetic sense. So we're trying to figure out a way of how we can fight this non-kinetic, non-violently, because once the violence happens, it's stupid. It's all over, and you don't need that, right? So there's a
Right,
debate
right.
between activism and civil disobedience. I think Martin Luther King had the right answer. You go to his place down in Atlanta, the memorial down in Atlanta, and there's this 10 points. That's how he did it. It was 10 points, and I think like 5 or 6 of them have to do with nonviolence. And that's
Wow,
the way to do
wow.
it. Martin Luther King showed us the way.
I mean, I don't know if I do. Obviously, I mean, he had good teachings, but I'm not sure if we can obtain anything without violence.
Oh, yes, we can.
Um,
Because once the violence comes, guess who
like,
has all the firepower? And all these guys that are like, yeah, you know how many weapons there are. Yeah,
I guess
okay.
so. I guess
You
so.
go ahead and use them, and then next thing you know, you and your family is a pool of blood. That's not and then that's what they want. They want it to go kinetic so that they can clamp down even further. And they're trying to lure whatever, that
I
side
mean,
into it.
when I say violence, I guess I mean more like a defense, like um, defending your position, because there's always going to be somebody kind of attacking on the attack. Maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the answer is power in numbers.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, they know that too. That's why they start censoring people online. and deplatforming you, because the numbers in the modern day society, it's how many people you can get as likes and in your group and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
subscribers and so on. And so if they take that away from one side, everyone feels like they're alone. So the important thing would be to mass together in a nonviolent way at your local places, school boards and things like that, and just let the people know, you know what, dress nicely. Going back to that
I
Martin
mean,
Luther King.
well,
Mhm.
okay, so sorry to interject, but it's just the when we're saying masked unviolent, or like masked together unviolently,
Mhm.
that um that would have to require people not to impose things on other people, like the
Correct.
mandates.
Oh
So like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not just like physical violence. I mean, because that stuff is the one that's what leads to violence. You're starting to
Yeah.
impose yourself on me.
That is
Um,
true. Absolutely. That's very
that
deep.
it just to clarify like that statement a little bit.
Mark Dunn is advocating. No,
Oh
you know
man,
what?
it's a coup. It's a coup. No, like
I'm glad you
yeah.
mentioned that word mandate.
Hmm.
Nothing, I don't know what makes me more sick. The notion that some other human being in a free society, where we sit there and we sing Lee Greenwood and it gives me goosebumps, proud to be an American and land of the free and all that, right?
Hmm.
But we don't live it. You can't sit there and say it but then not live it, right? But we sit there and
Right,
say land of the free, blah blah blah, and then just be like, oh, there's a mandate. Okay, that word mandate really gets to me. Screw. And even when I was
right.
a little
Yeah,
tiny kid,
totally.
my teachers, you know, in the same vein, I'm like, no, no, just because you say so, screw you. I've always been that way. And I'm still able to live, you know, function in a civilized place in a big company. Like I'm not that way all the time, but it grates on me. So I don't know what makes me more sick. The notion that a mandate is put down upon us, or the observation that people just reflexively be like, oh, okay, yeah, a mandate, sure. Yeah, I'll go
Yeah,
along with it because there's a mandate. No, a mandate's not a law. We don't live by decree by the chief executive. We don't live by decree. Hey, you wanna make us do something by force, and government is force. To your point, government is force, because at the end of that nice suggestion is a guy with a gun, right?
right.
Um,
That's true. That's
yeah, if
right.
you don't comply, it's like, oh, you made a law, well, I'm just not going to comply. At the end of the day, there's going to be a guy with a gun, right?
Hmm.
And so go ahead and do your little guy with a gun law, but you know what? Do it through. We have a triumvirate system, right? The chief executive don't just come out and be like, "Yeah, I decree. I wave my arms in the air and decree that the tide shall not come in today." No, it's not the way it works. Go through the legislature who is answerable to the people every 2 years, right? And then have it checked by the courts. So you can decree all you freaking want, but what you decree is dictated by the legislature, which is closer to the people than you are, right? And then the courts come in
Yeah,
behind and say, hey, we've reviewed that and we think it violates X, Y, and Z, so you can't do it, you know?
right.
You go ahead and do it that, then it's a mandate. But until that happens, a mandate's not a law. A corporate policy is not a law. And these corporations, by the way, I think they're setting themselves up for bankruptcy because
Mm,
they've
yeah.
done all the heavy lifting of this bullshit. But what they're going to find is that when people get lawyers and sue them for any number of these violations of whatever, um, they're not going to have the same exemption that a pharmaceutical company has. They're not going to have the government come to their defense. No, they're going to get cut to ribbons by all these lawsuits from individual people saying, "Hey, you made me do this. I lost my job because I wouldn't, but I had the right to not do that, and I'm going to sue your ass."
They're basically going to become collateral damage for the people who are actually in power and
Yeah,
have
and you know
most of the
what?
money. And then
And
the government and the people in power are just going to be like, whatever, you didn't have to listen to us. I don't know.
yeah,
Like,
so that's my warning to these corporations is, man, number one, you shouldn't have done all the heavy lifting. And you're hiding behind like, well, it's not, of course, not law, but it's corporate policy. No, no, no. Well, then, oh, you can have a corporate policy saying that someone of a certain race is not allowed to work here. Like, oh, it's not a law, but it's just a corporate policy. No, that's
yeah.
not the way it works. So you're going to get sued. God bless the lawyers. As much as people say lawyers suck, I mean, they have a job in society, you know?
Sure, sure.
So anyway, that my prediction, I don't have a timetable, but I think there's always a go back, you know? There's a consequence to everything.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of organization and time, passage of time. And next thing you know, people who think, oh, well, all I got to do is just be like, oh, so sorry, my bad. No, no, no. They're not going to be able to walk away from it so easily.
All right, Mike. I gotta start cutting this off. We've definitely gone for like the
Yeah,
marathon this, which is great because I love talking to you. But I guess
we got to get back to work.
we gotta get back to work and the world and saving the world. And anyway, yeah. So it was great talking to you. Thank you
100%.
as usual, and we'll talk again soon. So
All right, buddy.
thanks everybody for joining my podcast on the Mark. And this is Mark and Mike in the morning. So we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Peace. Cheers.